Good morning, you're watching The Mint, I'm Andy Hodges. Let's have a quick look at African currencies, commodities, basic commodities, metal and energy prices around the world. In our main story this morning, we look at the state of the agricultural sector in Zimbabwe and the sector's preparedness for the upcoming agricultural season. Agriculture in Zimbabwe can be divided into two parts: commercial farming of crops such as cotton, tobacco, coffee, peanuts and various fruits, and subsistence farming with staple crops such as maize or wheat. Land, Agriculture, Water, Climate and Rural Resettlement Deputy Minister Vangelis Haritato said, "How will Zimbabwe feed its growing population? We need to transform our traditional agricultural system to a system that is run on commercial basis. Agriculture is not a way of life, but agriculture is a business." At the National Dialogue on Agriculture and Food Systems Transformation in Zimbabwe, which was held in the capital recently, the debate centered on why Zimbabwe is failing to increase agricultural production, why it remains inefficient, and why there is a sharp increase in hunger when harvests fail or drought strikes. In the recent budget 2020 announced by the Minister of Finance, Professor Ntuli Ncube, the government of Zimbabwe proposed some solutions to these questions.
For agriculture, embracing climate-smart agriculture will improve prospects for agricultural sector, which is projected to grow by at least 5% in 2020. This growth is attributable also to a better rainfall season during the 2019-2020 season, supported by timely disbursements of inputs. In line with this thrust, emphasis will be on better planning, shared financing burden between government and the private players, productivity which also relies on irrigation and marketing systems which guarantee farmer viability. The budget will therefore, starting in January 2020, establish an appropriate financing plan which ensures early build-up and ring-fencing both local currency and resources and foreign currency resources in support of domestic input producers and importation of inputs. This resolves the challenge of agriculture demands competing with other programs for both domestic and foreign resources during the last quarter of the year, which apparently coincides with the start of the summer cropping season. On irrigation and food security, under the 2020 budget, irrigation development is receiving top priority in order to guarantee food security in the country. Government will therefore target irrigable hectare to guarantee grain production of around 1.8 million tons. For this purpose, capable farmers with irrigation facilities will be identified with a view of contracting and supporting them to produce required grain specifically for food security.
Zimbabwe's food security depends on producing cereal crops as well as increasing its production of fruits, vegetables and milk to meet the demands of a growing population with rising incomes. To do so, a productive, competitive, diversified and sustainable agricultural sector will need to emerge at an accelerated pace. Key issues that need to be addressed include national input requirements and projections to 2025, agriculture production and value addition, farmers' unions' perspectives, as well as strategies to scale up the transformation of the country's agricultural sector. Furthermore, what will be the impact of population growth and climate change on agriculture? Lemint spoke to Paul Zakaria, Executive Director of the Zimbabwe Farmers Union, to get the union's views on the current situation on the ground with regard to the upcoming season.
They are available, but the issue is affordability. They are priced way, way beyond the reach of many. So it's the prices that are the issue here, not so much of the inputs themselves. The distribution of inputs has been going on, and some of the bottlenecks that have been experienced in terms of the distribution, to the best of our knowledge, they have been sorted out. Now farmers who registered successfully through that program, they are now collecting the last bit of their inputs. So we are still at that stage where it's inputs and land preparation and the planting. That's where we are at the moment. So come February, March, we will then be able to say what actually came out of all programs, the Command Agriculture one included.
According to Shadrach Guaril, a founder member of Agribusiness Consortium, there remains a lot of challenges facing the agricultural sector. One, the rains came very late and were not evenly distributed. Secondly, agricultural input prices are on the high side and unaffordable, such that farmers could not adequately procure all required basic inputs. Land preparation was affected by unavailability of diesel, and for those using animal-drawn plows, oxen were in a very poor state of health. Shadrach Guaril further added that contract farming for all high-value crops needs to be promoted and legally binding documents like MOUs to be in place. Other experts have highlighted the need to strengthen the country's crop disease surveillance and the adoption of new technologies to boost production. We are joined on the Mint by Orbit Chifamba, Zimpapers farming news editor. Orbit, I think the main question is can we get to a point where Zimbabwe can feed itself?
Yeah, we can come to that point. That is, if we adopt the right methods. By this I mean government should adopt a policy that promotes irrigation. We are being battered left, right and center by climate change challenges. And every season, if you notice, we have very limited rains. There's some calamities as a result of the current climate change problems. What government may need to do is to harness all the water that falls during a season. You see, we have a lot of water that flows every year into the seas. What if government just traps that water and then boosts irrigation? We have a lot of estates dotting the country. I think we have around 22 estates under ADA, the Agricultural Rural Development Authority. 22 estates that translate into at least 100,000 hectares of arable land. So imagine if government were to say, we are now equipping these estates sufficiently with irrigation, and we trap water that is running into the seas every year, so that we plant hybrid seeds that boost yields. There are companies that are producing hybrids that can yield in excess of 20 tons per hectare. So if government was to say we are now turning all other estates into our food hubs, and then create the necessary conditions for those hybrid seeds, those hybrid varieties to grow and reach maturity.
But the Minister of Finance did talk about targeting irrigation projects to make sure that those with irrigation infrastructure at least could produce, because it seems that we're failing to increase production. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, there are many reasons, in fact. One, it's on the natural side, the climate change part of it. And then our economy at the moment is not very favorable to agriculture. Farmers normally need liquid economies. Liquidity, they need to purchase a lot of inputs. They need a lot of cash to throw around, securing inputs, hiring labor, hiring expertise, and that kind of thing. So if we improve on our liquid situation that is currently affecting operations, farmers can do a lot of miracles. And then that done, we also maybe adopt solar system, because we are currently running short of electricity, and that's not a secret. We don't have adequate ZESA. And the thing now we can tend to is solar. We have a lot of sun here. Solar will boost operations that require electricity.
Great, thank you. That was Oba Chipamba, Zimpapers farming news editor. Government and the private sector have also been urged to assist smallholder farmers, just as Oba was saying, with solar power water pumping machines or facilities so that we have supplementary irrigation during mid-season dry spells. Look, when everything is said and done, the major issue is that raising productivity should be the main engine of agricultural growth as the country moves forward. Doubled its revenues in the quarter ended September the 30th, 2019 to 65.5 million from 32.2 million in the same period last year, despite the challenging operating environment during the period under review. Notwithstanding the economic challenges, the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange listed media group remains in good stead as revenue is one of the main drivers of profitability in the long run. The improved revenue performance has a positive impact on profitability, with the group's profit before tax increasing by 252.1% to 14 million from 4 million in the prior comparable period in 2018. The total assets of the group increased by 48% to 57.4 million due to an increase in current assets driven by an improved working capital position. Although receivables increased in line with the nominal growth in sales, the management said it is committed to improve collections and preserve value. In this respect, the company says several collection strategies have been put in place to drive the company's vision on working capital management. With regards to divisional performance, the print advertising and circulation saw their volumes during the quarter declining by 16% and 22% respectively compared to the same period last year. But on a more positive note, the commercial printing division recorded growth in volumes of 29% compared to the same period last year. The performance of the commercial printing division came on the back of improved demand for the division's products, enhanced capacity utilization and efficiencies. The radio broadcasting division recorded a growth in volumes of 22% compared to the same period last year, and the growth was mainly driven by expansion of client base in the small to medium enterprise sector. The group said it was pleased that its digital-first strategy is starting to bear fruit. Digital contributed 2% of revenues, which saw the television project, ZTN, of course Zimpapers is our parent company, chipping in with 2%. Going forward, management said its key focus for the last quarter of 2019 is on cutting back volumes decline, and a number of strategies in this respect are already being implemented. Focus will remain on the foreign currency generation, digitalization strategy and new projects as the company diversifies to broaden its revenue base, while also focusing on maintaining the business viability of existing products offerings, added Mr. Tomana, Company Secretary of Zimpapers. The Mint is joined now by Zimpapers Group Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Pikirai Deketeke. Or PD for short. PD, welcome to the Mint.
Thanks,
now
Andy.
the results, they seem very positive. There seems definite growth across all avenues, but also there's some bit of concerns. Maybe some highlights of the results that you can give us up to September.
Well, what is interesting really is that when you look at most of the companies on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, have all recorded volume decline because of the conditions in our economy right now. But what is interesting, and particularly interesting for Zimpapers, is that we are recording volume growth in commercial printing and in radio, which are not our really all traditional businesses. Whilst the traditional business, which is really the anchor of Zimpapers, the newspapers, we are beginning to see a decline in volumes for advertising and also for circulation. So we are really excited that there are new areas of growth that we don't have to worry too much about. New revenues coming out of television projects, new revenues coming out of radio on a positive trajectory, and commercial printing, which a couple of years ago we had almost written off, but coming back on a very positive note.
Now, management keeps talking about digital-first strategy. Maybe you could kindly explain that. What does that actually mean?
Well, the whole world is going digital. Fourth industrial revolution, almost everyone's talking about robotics, the new way of doing things. Most of the people, like some of us who are old traditional media companies, most of our business was print, was newspapers. But now the world is changing, it's all going digital. People are using their mobile phones, their computers, their iPads to consume content. They are no longer waiting for the printed product. So how do we operate in that environment where almost everyone is now digital? Grandmothers in the rural areas are transacting via EcoCash or any other platform, or getting messages on WhatsApp. So how do we as media companies go onto the digital platform and beginning to grow that platform to make sure that we are connected to audiences that read us or want to view us in terms of our content, or read our newspapers, or transact in any of our business platforms. So even in terms of our content delivery, it has to be digital first. When a person wakes up in the morning, they're coming out of bed, normally they reach out for their phones to see what is new, whether it's on WhatsApp or just scrolling down various media to find out what is going on. So we have to be there when a person wakes up in the morning, which was a space that used to be occupied by our newspapers primarily, but now it is different, it is their phone. In the olden days, a person would look at the newspaper to see what hospital visiting times were, to look at what the movies are, and to look at what is on TV, to understand what has happened the previous day. Today, they know they are up to speed. So this is where we are saying digital first.
That was Mr. Pickeraiteke, Zimpapers Group Chief Executive Officer. Thank you for coming on The Mint. There's no doubt that September results for Zimpapers appear very attractive, and management and the board of Zimpapers believe the organization from now onwards going into 2020, not just for the last quarter of 2019, but going into 2020, the group will go from strength to strength. Construction Review reports that expansion works at Hwange Thermal Power Station now stands at 25%, 14 months into the project. Upon completion, the project is expected to add 600 megawatts into the national grid by 2022. The US $1.5 billion project being carried out by Chinese firm Sino-Hydro entails the addition of 2 power generating units, Units 7 and 8, to the existing 6 units that were commissioned between 1983 and 1987. The project is part of Zimbabwe's efforts to find sustainable solutions to power shortages that are retarding industrial growth and curtailing economic growth. According to the Zimbabwe Power Company, ZPC, most excavation work has been completed, including for the cooling tower, the boiler house, and the chimney. And I quote, "We have completed all the excavations up to foundation level for Hwange 7 and 8, the ZPC said. The power company has confirmed that they are still on schedule to finish the project on time. The whole project will take up to 42 months to complete, but Unit 7 is expected to start firing by April 2021, while Unit 8 will follow later on. Hwange Power Station is Zimbabwe's largest coal-fired power generator, with production capacity of 920 megawatts. But because of old age, the plant's current dependable capacity is around 600 megawatts. In addition to the Kariba South Hydropower Extension Project, which was completed in March 2018, the Hwange Expansion Project is expected to substantially add to the national power grid and lift the nation out of the current power woes. Zimbabweans are having to endure long hours of load shedding every day due to depressed generation capacity and limited ability to import power from regional neighbors. Most South African companies with operations or business dealings in Zimbabwe are taking a tremendous hit from the economic crisis in the country, which has notably affected at least 20 of the 355 JSE-listed companies, Business Insider reports. Those companies face, as do all of Zimbabwe, negative economic growth, hyperinflation, foreign exchange shortages, power outages, big recent hikes in fuel prices, erratic fuel supply, and a severe currency devaluation. But of the 20 companies Business Insider South African identified with important dealings in Zimbabwe, a handful of them, all platinum mining companies, are doing well. Here are the South African companies doing well in Zimbabwe. Well, Tharisa stands to benefit following the declaration of a special economic zone that will benefit Karoo Zimbabwe, in which Tharisa has a 27% indirect stake. Impala Platinum, Implats, owns an 87% stake in Zimbabwean company Zimplats. Zimplats reported a profit of $144 million for the year ended June 2019, which was its best result in more than 4 financial years. Mimosa, a 50-50 venture between Implats and Sibanye Stillwater, is also bearing up well, and the mine reported a 21% hike in gross profit to 773 million rand for the year ended June. Anglo-American Platinum owns the Unki Platinum mine in Zimbabwe. Unki seems to be thriving, and it reported record platinum metal production for the half year ending June, and operating profit for the same 6 months was 488 million rand, up 15% from the prior half year. 5 South African companies not performing well in Zimbabwe are Nampak, PPC, Barlow World, Pick n Pay, and Pepkor. South African companies in Zimbabwe who have the right strategies, but importantly, make and procure as much of their inputs locally rather than import them, eliminating the need for foreign exchange, can still do extremely well in Zimbabwe. According to Zambia reports, the Zambian government has finally approved a proposal to legalize the production of marijuana. The production of marijuana in Zambia will, however, be restricted to exports and for medical purposes only. Companies wishing to trade in marijuana in Zambia will be charged $250,000 annual license fees. Only successful bidders will be issued with commercial licenses to grow and trade in marijuana for exports. The licenses will be issued by the Ministry of Health, while the growth of the crop will be strictly supervised by the Zambia National Service. Africa's legal cannabis industry could be worth more than $7.1 billion annually by 2023 if legislation is introduced in some of the continent's major markets, according to research from the African Cannabis Report, the first detailed report on the legal cannabis industry in Africa. While African cannabis industries have great potential, cannabis remains illegal throughout Africa except for in Lesotho. I'm Andy Hodges and you've been watching The Mint. Please follow us on our Facebook page, Zimpapers TV Network, our website, ztn.co.zw, and on YouTube under ZTN. Your comments, of course, are welcome via our Twitter handle at ZTN News and on Facebook. Join us here on The Mint every weekday morning at 6 a.m. Central African Time. Well, goodbye. Have a profitable business day and you all be safe.